In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the financial functions in Excel called future value. And future value function will tell you how much money you will have in the bank at the end of a certain amount of time. And there are two assumptions that are made when you're using the future value function. And one of those is that you will make regular constant deposits. So, usually these things are figured monthly. So you'd be putting the same amount in every single month. You wouldn't be allowed to vary that. And the other thing is that the interest rate does not change over that period of time as well. If either one of those is not true, then you can't use the future value function. So let's take a look at an example here. And I've got a template laid out here. And what we need to do is, in the yellow boxes here, we need to fill in the appropriate numbers. And then we're going to put the future value function over here, and we're going to figure out what the answer is there. So here's our problem. We have $20,000 in the bank, and we plan to deposit an additional $100 at the beginning of each month. And for 40 years at an annual rate of 10%, how much will you have at the end of the 40 years? Okay. So there are 5 numbers that are all related to one another in these financial problems. And if you know 4 of them, you can figure out what the 5th one is. So we're trying to find out what the future value is here. So we need to know the other 4. The other 4 are these bold lines right here. Now, future value is the one we're trying to figure out. So I'm just going to gray that out. And we'll put the answer over here, not here. So we need to know the present value, which is another way of saying the starting balance, but in all of the formulas it's referred to as the present value. The regular payment is referred to as PMT. The rate per period, and it says 10%, but that's an annual rate, so we're going to have to divide that by the number of periods per year, and it says that they are monthly, so we're going to have to take that 10% and divide it by 12. And the number of periods is going to be the number of years, which is 40, times the number of periods per year, which is 12. And if you look at the formula, I've already got a formula in here. And the formula says take the annual interest rate and divide it by the number of periods per year, so that's something that we have to do. If we put the numbers in C3 and C5 here, it will automatically calculate the rate per period. The other thing that is calculated for us, because I put this formula down here in C10, is it will calculate the number of periods. It's multiplying the years by the number of periods per year. Okay, so what we need to do then is we need to fill in all of the yellow boxes here, and then when we're done, we can put a formula over here that will compute the future value. So it's asking for the annual interest rate, and down below it says the annual interest rate is 10%. So we just need to put 10 in there. The number of years is 40. It says we're doing monthly payments. There's going to be 12 periods per year. Our starting balance is $20,000. And notice I've pre-formatted all these cells here, so we just have to type in the numbers and they'll be formatted correctly. The regular payment is $100 every month. And we want to know if we're doing this at the beginning or the end of each month. And Excel has a code for that, a numeric code. If we're doing it at the beginning of each month, we put the number 1 down here. If we're doing it at the end of each month, we put the number 0 down here. We're doing this at the beginning, so we need to put the number 1 in there. Okay. So as soon as we put in this number and this number, it divided 10% by 12 and calculated our rate per period. And as soon as we put in this number and this number, it multiplied those two together and found out how many periods we have altogether. So these numbers, these 3 numbers that we put up here at the top are important because they're used to calculate this number and this number down here. These 3 numbers, however, are not used when we start using the future value function. The ones that are used are the ones that have 2 characteristics over here. One is I put them in bold, so the ones that are not in bold up here are not going to be used directly in the function. And I also put the name of the argument that Excel uses in parentheses at the end. Okay, so we need to figure out the future value, and let's go to where we're going to put our answer. So we're going to put our answer here in E11, and we need to go to our Formulas tab, and all the financial functions have a stack of coins over here, and let's click on that. And there's quite a few of them that are built into Excel, and we're only going to look at 3 of them. And the one we want right now is future value, which is abbreviated FV. And we get this nice little dialog box that pops up here. I'm going to move it out of the way. And it wants to know what the rate is. And if you read down at the bottom, it's the interest rate per period. For example, use 6% divided by 4 if you're doing quarterly payments and the annual rate is 6%. So this has already been divided for us, so we just need to go here and find the rate. And notice that the name over here and the name up here match. Okay, now let's click or tab down to the NPER. And the number of periods is also labeled NPER over here. Click on the 480. And then the payment is this number right here, and C7. And the present value is how much money we have in the bank right now, and that is the $20,000. And you notice as we put in the cell references, the numbers pop up over here. And then the type is going to be this number down here. Okay, I'm almost done. But the number I come up with is a negative number at the end. And it should be a positive number. And in order to get that to turn out correctly, with the number will still be the same. But to get the negative sign removed or put a plus sign in front of it, there are two things we have to do. The payment in every single one of these problems is always going to be a negative number, so we must put a minus sign in front of it. And the present value is the equivalent. It's like we made a bunch of payments before we started, so it's the sum of a bunch of payments that have already been made, and those payments have already been made were negative, so we have to put a minus sign in front of that. And if you're wondering, why the minus signs go there, it has to do with the direction that the money is going. And even though this is going into your account, the direction of the money is from you to the bank. And money going from you to the bank is a negative number. Money going from the bank to you is a positive number. And that's the way an accountant explained to me. If you want a more detailed explanation, you'll have to ask an accountant about that. So now this comes out to be a negative number. And if we click on OK, we get a number of $1,711,691.29. And the neat thing about solving the problem the way that we did is now that we've solved it once, because everything we did in here, I'm going to double click on this, everything we did was we put cell references in. We didn't build a single number into our formula. So we never have to change this formula. If we want to figure out how much we're going to have if we start off with 30,000 instead of 20,000, all we got to do is change to 30,000. If we can increase our payments from $100 to $200 every month, all we have to do is change that from 100 to 200. If you want to change your interest rate, number of years, periods per year, it's usually monthly, but if it's going to be quarterly or semi-annual or even annually, you can put, a 6 or a 4 or a 2 in there. So we have just solved every single future value problem that there is. All we need to do is go back here and change these numbers to the appropriate values. Okay, one last thing. If you get your answer here, and with future value, it's supposed to be a positive number. So if it's not a positive number, or if you get some number like, $100 billion or something like that is clearly the wrong answer, what I recommend that you do, you can double click on this and you can go in here and you can look at the cell references that you put in for function arguments. But I think a better way to do it is to put the cursor in the cell that has the formula, in this case E11. And then go up here and click on the little insert function button, the little FX that's to the left of the formula bar. And it will bring up the function arguments here for you. And it will label them. We can see these if we double click, but this labels everything, and it also shows you what the equivalent value is over here. So if you see some number over here that looks way off, then you probably have something wrong over here. The most common mistake that people make, I think, is they put the annual rate in here instead of the rate per period. And so if you saw 10% up here, and obviously if you get 10% a year, I'm sorry, 10% a month, you're going to get a huge number. So if let's say I multiplied that by 12, which would be the equivalent, and hit enter, and now the answer that I get, is that. And, it's pretty clear that you're not going to have million, billion, trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, sextillion, septillion. You're probably not going to have $2 septillion in your savings account at the end of 40 years. So that's clearly going to be a wrong answer. Just go up here and look at the FX. And, 10% per month is a pretty high interest rate. So let's back off of that and make it what it's supposed to be and click on OK. And now we're getting the correct answer. So if you get ridiculous numbers here, go back and click on the FX and just go through the numbers and make sure that they are the numbers that you want them to be.